And I remember from the very beginning, when the Arts Council was formed in Lima, that this was the responsibility of all of us there at the Arts Council to touch the people who are in our community, and they were all different kinds of people in the community. And that was what was so exciting, I think, for so many of us, is that we had a tool. We felt that we had a tool, and that tool was an art, was the arts, in order to help people enjoy their lives and maybe have more meaning in their lives as a result of some of the things that they would participate in the arts. And so I think at the very beginning, given the community that we live in, and since it is such a multicultural environment here in Lima, it was really important to approach all of those things through the arts and to look at multicultural ways to do things and to reflect the community as it is, not as you would like for it to be.
I think without a doubt that prejudice is a result of your environment. The people the family that you grow up with, the people that you associate with, the prejudices that are institutionalized around your environment. Those are all circumstances that lead to your environment or your feeling of being in a prejudicial situation. Noticing some of the kids that I work with, I don't see that a lot because it hasn't taken hold, or they come from families where they haven't. That hasn't been an issue. Sometimes a kid will acquire racism through an incident that may have happened on the street or at school, and begin to feed off of that in a negative way. And sometimes that gets reinforced with the family. He goes home and tells the family about circumstance that may have happened, and it gets blown out of proportion into something that's really not there. I think that happens a lot. For me, I was fortunate enough to grow up in an environment where that was non-existent at a time in American history when that could have been a big issue back in the 50s. I was fortunate enough to be in a school where there was only 2 minority families. The rest were wealthy Caucasian kids. I went to grade school, elementary school, with the wealthiest kids in this city's history. The Froats, the Schoonovers, the Steiners, the Butlers, who used to own Butler's Drug. Those were my best friends. And fortunately, they were all raised in a way that they didn't see a lot of differences. They were wealthy. I was a poor black kid. And they taught me a lot about acceptance. Like I said, that was in the 50s when if you turn on the television, you could have seen a lot of the issues that were occurring at that time with regard to racial prejudice happening in the South. And for me, as a young African American boy, that was a different world from what I was experiencing. I like to tell the story of Judge Rocky. His son was one of my best friends at the time. He was a juvenile judge, his father was. I like to tell the story of them taking me to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton. And I was sitting in the gift shop down there, and I was playing with a little model airplane. And Rick came up to me and he said, "It's time to go." And so I looked up and I put the airplane back on the shelf, and he looked at me and he said, "Don't you want that?" And I said, "No." And in an instant, he took off running, and he came back in about 2 minutes, and he had the exact amount of money for that airplane, because he knew I didn't have the money. And his father had given him that money for me to get that airplane. those kids were an exception at that point in time. I mean, they never let me feel any different than they were. And I think it's through that environment that I saw white people differently than most black people did. And I think that is an advantage for me. And I think most black people, at least in Lima, did not have that experience that I had, exposing myself to, the really good that was out there. And I think it enabled me to, the rest of my life, to be very open-minded, about that circumstance.
Because with all those different ways of dancing and art and music, people learn different ways. And if they're very strong at learning musically, music is the best way to teach them. If people are very strong in visual spatial by seeing things, art and painting is the best way to teach them that they need to change.
I think it was better because when you read it in a book, they kind of sugarcoat it and it's not the real story. When you have somebody who has experienced it come in and tell you about it, then you can tell it actually happened. They don't just give you like, here's an example. They say, this actually happened to me. It's real.
I didn't know that handicapped people had prejudices against them. And so whenever a handicapped person came in and talked to us, I really thought it was different. And she showed us what kind of things happened to her when she went outside of her house. And that really showed me.
Well, I think prejudices and biases definitely start in the home. I mean, that's where you are most influenced by your parents, your relatives, and the people that your guardians, if you will, decide to bring into your home. And those are the people that are influencing your prejudices and biases. So I think those are definitely start in the home. And then as we get into education, we're going to school. And then I think definitely our educators are influencing those biases and prejudices, as well as the friends and the people that your child or your children are interacting with, whether that's through after-school programs, it's through the engagements that your families have that participate in. I think there's, it definitely comes from society, but it's multifaceted in terms of what parts of society, whether it's your home, education, the social functions that you may attend.
I think it starts very, very early. I think that it's something that you're molding your opinions as you go through life circumstances. But I think it comes from the way you're raised, or at least in the environment in which you're raised, because your reaction to your circumstances and your family's circumstances, and then you're getting behavior that's modeled to you from others that have those ideas already cemented, or those prejudices or pieces that they tolerate and don't tolerate, they're being modeled for you. So you incorporate that in the set of skills that you use to base a criteria. And I think that it's something that you're raised with.
Well, in our case, what we wanted to do was get the kids not only to develop the concepts, but to correctively communicate those to our artists. And so it was very interesting watching them. First, we went to the classroom, of course. I had the kids develop, remember, a little concept sketch of what they wanted to do. So this was an art project not involving their skills as artists, but their conceptual skills to be able to make a more unified concept, so all of the art projects had a similar look. So they were all ostensibly designed by, extensively they were designed by our artist, John, but they were communicated by the kids. So we were able to take the stock images, customize them, and make them match their concept sketch. So to me, it was more all about the communication process and how the kids could portray and take their ideas from their head and get them out into another person's head.
I think we have a responsibility to be true to just what's right first, and then we go from there. Yeah. Racism to me, much like classism or sexism, is a use of a power or privilege against someone according to their race, their ethnicity. Much like classism would be depending on status or what side of town or how much money you make or whatnot, or sexism would be based on gender. But it's that use of power to make yourself feel superior, to someone, based on possibly what they look like, what their ethnicity is.
I see racism as when we treat someone based differently because of their appearance. For example, how I would treat you if I met you as a total stranger, as a white man or as a black man or as a Muslim, for example. I think that basically is what racism is all about.
My definition of racism is having a certain dislike for a different type of person.
My definition of racism is when you have a closed mind and you do not accept somebody for who they are, even though they can't change who they are. Like racism through race, religion, anything like that. I mean, having that closed mind where you just can't open that door and accept them.
For me, that kind of caught my attention was, there's been, prejudice, racism against Jewish people for I don't know how long, but during that time, we had that speaker, I didn't think it was still going on, at least to that extent, And when she said she couldn't even get a hotel room, to me that was pretty messed up. That's just wrong for a company to do, even as itself.
From in the classroom, there was evidence, or I had evidence of it working, but I think education, because issues-based is what it used to be about. If you look at early art and communities or civilizations, it was all issues-based, like funeral vases, Greek vases. Oh. It's only modern formalized education that's tried to separate it, so that we had art as it was marginalized into something else that didn't apply to anything else. Issues-based now is just getting back, I think, to the original purpose of art. It was all issues-based because it all applied to, it wasn't segmented from anything else. It's only through an assembly line type of education that we've tried to segment all pieces of it. And just having art and not having kids be able to apply to anything didn't work. Now it works because issues-based is an application to something else beyond just the art itself.
It's community building. Yeah. And really, the tool is the arts. That was the tool I chose to use and that you have chosen to use as a way to build communities and make them cohesive, although they're different. All of them are different. And that's what's exciting about a community or a city, is that difference, and that we can respect that.
My definition of racism is in particular, one color of people, disliking another.
The thing that really struck me was the discriminating against Jews, because in the World War, World War II, we were fighting against Hitler in the concentration camps to free them from there and to save their lives. And then when we welcome them in, well, it's no longer a warm welcome, and then it's just like the Nazis, only without the death.